I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com for the weekly news wrap up, the WNW 428 for April 24th, 2020. The WNW 428. Listen, I've long said that in the end, we were going to get both inflation and deflation at the same time. What does that mean? Deflation, let's start there. Deflation is debt destruction, people stopping to pay their mortgages, business owners not paying their business leases, people not paying their credit cards, people not paying their car loans, absolute default on bonds and everything else. And then on the other side, we'll have inflation, which is what we're seeing, massive money printing, the Federal Reserve repo operation, the balance sheet going from from 3.7 trillion in September to over 6.3 trillion dollars now and growing. And that's the inflation. And imagine, and this is what Martin Armstrong was talking about. He says, well, I know they're printing a lot of money, but if you take a look at how much capital is being destroyed, people not paying their loans, their mortgages, their credit cards, all that. If you look at how much capital is being destroyed, it's like a guy with a garden hose trying to fill up a hole being dug with a ditch digger with a 4-foot wide bucket. And you're trying to fill that hole up. At some point, though, the water will fill up the hole. And so here we are under this backdrop. This is where I want to start. Inflation and deflation at the same time. We always were told, and I believe this, we'll get deflation first, but it won't go away. Inflation, deflation at the same time. Start here. President Trump signs new $484 billion coronavirus bill. No money in it to bail out states like Illinois and other heavily indebted blue states. They were trying to get that in there, particularly for Illinois. They need tens of billions of dollars. They're way underwater for their crazy economic policies. That happened before the coronavirus. Mitch McConnell says struggling states should file for bankruptcy. Are you getting that? Inflation, we're printing a $484 billion in this round of stimulus. And Mitch McConnell is saying, we can't bail it out all. And, he's a Republican. And if you look at, you have two sides here. The blue states will say, well, we put, especially states like New York and California, we put way more money in the federal coffers than what smaller states like Utah and Missouri and whatever those states do. Yeah, but you got more during the bailout, that's for sure. And then on the other side of the aisle, you have all the people who are in solvent states, which are mostly red states. There's some blue states, but are mostly, and they're saying, hey, whoa, wait a minute, you're going to bail out these guys with these policies that have been vote buying with their public pensions and their employee funds and their giveaways and their reckless handling of the economy. Now their economies have blown up and states can't print money. And now, California, Illinois, New York, Connecticut, all want to be bailed out. All the blue states want to be bailed out now by people who scrimp and save, by the states that run their budgets with surpluses or at least not negative much. And now the rest of the country has to bail them out, so they don't have to change a thing. See, Illinois is going to have to at some point, even though they passed a law, for example, Illinois, the state that doesn't mow their highways, but once a year because they don't have any money. They're going to have to come to a point where they have to massively raise taxes. And there's going to be a limit because there's a lot of Democrats that don't want their taxes raised massively. The state and pension employees do not outnumber the people, the taxpayers in Illinois. And that's what we're faced with. Can they keep living the dream? They keep buying votes by, oh, sure. I mean, I think in California, there's excess of 80,000 people. They get a pension of in excess of $100,000 a year, 80,000 state employees, county employees that get a pension of more than $100,000 a year. And by the tens of thousands, that's for sure. And, you have Governor Newsom, who they're going to just give money to illegal aliens. And you have all these Americans out of work, many of which are in California, and I'm sure many of which are Democrats. This unemployment thing doesn't just single out Republicans or Democrats. No. And I'll talk about the unemployment in a minute. And so that's what you're seeing now. The fight, why would Mitch McConnell say the state should? Well, the federal government is going to bail out trillions of dollars in pensions and malfeasance, and I would say out and out fraud in some of these state budgets and governments. The rest of America is not going to bail that out. I was listening to Trump today. He says, telling one reporter, Carl is the ABC swine reporter, propagandist from ABC, and Jonathan Carl. And of course, he was being, I guess, polite this time. And, the president said, listen, we'll talk about that. I want to do the best for the people of the United States, not for the people holding the government pensions in New York, at the MTA, and we're talking about state pensions. You're talking about state unions and pensions for state employees. I don't have any problem with unions because they're just going after a piece of the profits. And if the company has a bankruptcy like General Motors, the union should go down there, their partner. I don't like public pensions either, did FDR. Why? Because there's no profits. There's just taxpayers. And so that's what this is about. They wanted money in for Illinois, billions and billions of dollars for Illinois. And I thought, they're afraid Illinois would flip red, that people would finally have enough and say, F it, we're done. Of course, they passed a law in Illinois saying that they could not welch on the pensions, which is outrageous. So what are they going to do? Just take everybody's property to pay for state employees and their lavish pensions? Listen, they gave them too much and they bought too many votes. And that's why you're seeing Mitch McConnell talk about struggling states should file for bankruptcy. That would mean the pensions would take a giant haircut. All these people would get creamed. These people on state pensions get something that taxpayers don't get. Most people don't get pensions anymore. They save their money in a 401k. They buy a house. They try to pay it off. State pension, a pension for state workers, paid for by taxpayers. So watch that fight heat up. That's going to be a nasty, nasty fight. And that's what we're talking about. They can't bail out everything. So they're going to bail out some things, and they're going to let other things go under. Inflation, money printing to bail out some things, and deflation, debt default. Pensions are debt. Defaults. That's what the theme is going to be for the next several years to come. Inflation and deflation at the same time. Deflation is debt destruction. And speaking of deflation, 4.4 million more people filed for unemployment this week, bringing the total out of work to 26.4 million folks. In the Great Depression, 12 million people lost their jobs in about 3 years, in the depths of the Great Depression. In April of this year, this past week in 2020, 26.4 million people have now lost their jobs in less than a month and a half. What's it going to look like in 3 years? Now, back in 1929, there was 90,000 people in America, and the unemployment rate got to just about 25%. John Williams at shadowstats.com, computes the unemployment rate, without the gimmicks, and it's almost 25% right now. Almost. And actually, some of the top people are forecasting it'll be 20% by the end of April. And then you got May, June, July. This is why Martin Armstrong said you need to bring the economy back. We need to open it back up. I don't understand why Trump is fighting with Georgia, who wants to start opening up their economy. There's a town in Texas, bam, going to open up. In South Dakota, the governor there is never really shut it all down. Of course, that's South Dakota. But still. And you look at the demand destruction that's been destroyed. 26 million people, demand destruction has been destroyed for vacations, for gambling, for big fat grocery carts and big fat steaks every weekend, and going to Disney World and Universal Studios, and taking trips to wine country and spending a few nights a weekend in a hotel. That's all gone. Poof. Even if it comes back tomorrow, demand destruction. And you look at the demand destruction in just gasoline. I was listening to an analyst talking about that. And it's more than 50% of gasoline usage has been destroyed. I think it's something like 52%, according to one analyst. Now, this guy came out and said, that we're using about the same amount of gas and the same amount of gasoline in America as we did in 1968. Oil, 1722. It went to zero or 1 penny or negative $37 on Monday. Listen, at the end of these contracts, and because of this financial alchemy, and they trade many times the oil production a day with derivatives and contracts and all kinds of leverage and crazy Frankenstein Wall Street stuff, which is outrageous. It was actually at negative $37 because they pumped out so much. And then you got to take delivery, then you got to store it. That'll cost you $37 a barrel. Then the next day it opened up at the contracts will open up. I know it's kind of complicated, but opened up at $21 or so and shot down during the day to $6 a barrel. And then back up to close at $11.32. And then, we've had a couple of days of going up 20% a day. Yeah, 20%. It's at $17. A lot of companies, fracking companies, have to have $60, $70, $80 to make money. I think Russia is like, we'll be happy with $25. It's $17. Can you imagine what's happening in Russia and Saudi Arabia and Iran to their revenues? Now, you had Donald Trump tweeting out about Iranian gunboats hassling and hampering our vessels in the Persian Gulf. And then you had Donald Trump tweeting out that they should fire on them if they have to. Now, I'm sure he sent an order down the chain of command, but he put that out so that the Iranians could see it. That's why he tweeted that out. I'm sure he also made an order down the chain of command. But you don't think Russia would like to have a little oil price raising skirmish somewhere? You don't think the Iranians would like to have a little oil price surge skirmish somewhere without starting World War III? I mean, I don't know. But this oil is we've had the demand destruction, right? And so let's say we can get go from 52% or 50% and go back up, to 25%, off 25%. So we can gain 25% or 30%, but we'd still be off. We'd be off 20%. The demand, we'd still be down 20%. And then you got supply destruction. Listen, one analyst says could be at least 2/3 of the oil producers and natural gas producers right now could be out of business in a year. This was the one super bright spot in our employment picture during the last, 3 to 5 years? Oil production. Workers making far above the minimum wage with health care and insurance and dental and matching 401k and sick days and far above the minimum wage. Poof, gone. Why am I telling you this? I'm not trying to be negative. I'm trying to tell you we have a long slog ahead of us. And the oil price, Bo Pony was talking about, something's going to plunge. And, it was, in the morning of April 20th, we got oil down to 1%. He was on the phone with me. Are you watching this? Oil's at 1 cent. Or they froze oil at 1 cent. Meanwhile, the contract went negative $37. Now, the next day, they opened back up for the next month's contract. But now we're up to 17.22 as I write this, as I'm talking to you. So we've had demand destruction, and what will follow is going to be production destruction. Oil companies are going to go out of business. Producers are going to go out of business. It's going to be awful for almost everybody. And then you look at the mortgage market, and I had somebody write me and said, my grandfather told me back, and and this guy was like in the 70s, right? So he was a child of people who lived through the Depression, right? And he said, my grandfather told me that there's a couple of things that you didn't get in this Great Depression. One of them was you saved everything, cigar tins and jars and anything, newspapers, anything you might need in the future. So you had a whole group of people that just didn't throw anything away, hoarded everything. And he said, the other thing you didn't have in the Great Depression, he said, his grandfather said, is credit. He said, I always heard my grandfather say, I could buy a great farm if I could just have credit. Well, look at this as we begin the Greatest Depression. Mortgage market meltdown. Even the wealthiest loan applicants are now being turned down by lenders. And check this out, borrowers that were ready to put up 20% may now need to put up 30%. The days of cheap money are over, folks. I mean, I had a friend of mine sell a house a few years ago, and they actually sold it for about $5,000 more than what the house was worth. That's what the loan was for. And at closing, they paid that extra $5,000, to pay closing costs. They still borrowed the money, but that's what they did with the extra five. It's fraud. No money down, negative. You're negative from the moment you move into the house. That's over, folks. You're going to have a down payment from now on, a big one. I'm sure that the government's going to have some no money down stuff that the taxpayer will have to pick up. But listen, money's going to be tight, folks. Inflated and tight. And so if you look at what kind of what we have facing us, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. Enough about that. I just want you to, and this is why gold is going up. I mean, gold's up, what, $450 year over year an ounce? What is that reflecting? The strong dollar? Fear? Inflation? Deflation? All the above? I think probably all the above. And when you look at it, people, well, you're a gold buck. No, I mean, can you buy bonds? Would you be a long-term holder of dollars? I mean, Bo Pony says, listen, we're going to get the inflation. And he was right about the top. He was right, it would plunge. It's back up to around 24. We'll see. You got to do the end of the month. He says 7 days after that or so till the end of April, we're going to get probably another plunge. But if not, we'll get it in May. He's probably right about that. But he hadn't missed much. But he got the oil plunging. He got that something epic on the 21st, the 20th, the 21st. It happened on the 21st, but actually it was the 21st over in Israel. That's what he was talking about. But anyway, Martin Armstrong says, hey, dollars are going to be strong until, 2022. And actually, Pony and Armstrong do say basically the same thing, but it's a matter of timing, okay? So Pony says, no, we're getting more inflation than anybody can imagine, earlier than later. It's going to be earlier than later. Really? Yeah. Even though there's all this debt destruction, yes, it's going to be faster than what you think. It ain't going to be 2022. But they both think the market will end up bottoming out totally, finally, in the final rung in 2022. That's Pony, that's Nenner, that's Martin Armstrong. Nenner also made some great calls. I don't say that enough, but Nenner, just about a couple of weeks before Pony came on, said he told his clients to get out. And he was about 2% from the top, Charles Nenner. The data that shows that things are going to take a lot longer to get better, much better, and I think it's going to be years. We've destroyed, just take a look at gas. 50% of the demand for gasoline is gone. Now, just in crude terms, does that mean 50% of the demand for food and pork products and steaks? And we're talking about companies right now, euthanizing hogs and cattle and selling them, and there may be food shortages, although the FDA says there's not. But you hear reports like that. But, that's, if you get the demand destruction with 25% gasoline, 50% less uses of gasoline or so, are you going to get 50% less food products, or people going to cheaper products like rice and beans instead of pork and chicken and steaks? I mean, let's just say we get back 25% of the gas, or 30%, and we're just down 20% of demand has been destroyed. Wow, it's a lot. Wow, that's a lot. There are going to be tens of thousands, if not maybe millions, of businesses that'll never open up again, even with this stimulus package. It's going to be tough. And then when they do open up, think about all the demand that's been destroyed. So be careful. I want to talk about the mainstream media. I used to work at CNN, used to work at ABC News, worked at 5 television stations, and man, we had people who had editorial control. I never put anything on the air. I don't care if it was a local TV station or ABC Good Morning America or the evening news or CNN on the morning show or the evening shows and Paula Zahn's show. I never put anything on it without editorial oversight. CNN was super strict back when I worked there. Obviously, they're not now. But they put out this story, and I don't know how to tell you other than that's a huge lie. More deaths, no benefit from malaria drug. This is hydroxychloroquine in VA, Veterans Administration virus study. Well, that's a lie right there. It's a survey. It's not a study. It's not a study. And this was the AP and all the other news organizations picked up on this study as well. This is just the AP version. The Washington Post, the liars over there, the liars at the New York Times. I'll get to the rest of this thing. The liars at ABC, CNN lie. CNN lie. Jeff Zucker, who's the news director over there, the top guy. You're a weasel. Outrageous, all you guys doing editorial at all these places, the New York Times, the Washington Post, ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN. You all ought to be fired. For letting the idiots run the asylum. It's a shameful lie. Let's just start there. Period. The end. All the mainstream media ran with this evil Trump-hating, deadly propaganda. Not a study, as I said, a survey. Older patients on death's door were giving hydroxychloroquine. They had already been intubated. They had already had a ventilator. They're almost dead. Oh, we gave it to them and they died. And then the Veterans Administration walked it back and said hydroxychloroquine did work when given early. A huge lie that wasn't properly vetted. And why in the world wouldn't they talk about all the studies and all the things that are working? I mean, do we need a perfect, pure study? I guess at some point, but people are dying. So doctors are trying to come up with ways not to let them die. This is one of the things that Donald Trump talked about. And mind you, the FDA has cleared the use of hydroxychloroquine given by a doctor. We're talking about not some homebrew with some dope with a tinfoil hat on his head in his mama's basement. We're talking about administered by doctors, and the FDA has approved it weeks ago. And then the mainstream media is making out like these French doctors, Dr. Didier Renault, they're making it about he's some quack. He's one of the top infectious disease doctors. He's an MD and a PhD in, I think, microbiology, one of the top infectious disease doctors in the world. And they're making him out to be some Trump kook at the expense of people dying. We had that African-American female state politician in Michigan who went to the White House and said, man, if I wouldn't have heard about this from the president, I would have died. Hydroxychloroquine. I think they also give, in some cases, zinc, a Z-Pack. I would have died. Do you know that the Democrats are going to punish her? An African-American politician at the state level, they're going to punish her from going to the White House. Oh, how dare black people think for themselves and not stay on the thought plantation? How dare somebody black would tell other people, black or white, hey, this worked for me. This could save your life. How dare they do that? We have to destroy Trump. And if a few people have to die, including Democrats, it's okay. Chris Cuomo. Listen, I'm not going to call him stupid names like Fredo and junk like that. I mean, it just takes away from the whole thing. I think that's unfair, actually. But what I will do is question his journalism. And I want to know why in the world he did what he did with coming out of, staging some coming out of his basement, getting over his COVID, Wuhan virus, China, whatever you want to call it. You know what I want to know? Did you take hydroxychloroquine? Did you take zinc? Was it administered out of a pharmacy by a local doctor? Because you didn't go to the hospital. You were in your basement. Now his son has it and his wife has it. Do you think he'll wait until they stick an intubation tube down the throat before they give him life-saving hydroxychloroquine, which, according to this Dr. Didier Renault, he says it should be given early? Do you think he'll suggest they get hydroxychloroquine, or do you think he'd put them on a ventilator where, in the hospital where the hospital will give $37,000 per patient if they can get them on a ventilator, as opposed to just treating somebody with HCQ, that's hydroxychloroquine, HCQ. it would be $13,000, but if they can get him on a ventilator, they'll make $37,000. Now, what do you think the motivation is for? This is actual fact, folks. What do you think the motivation there for the hospital to get you as sick as they can get you, and then try to pull it out at the last minute after you've been intubated, after you have a ventilator down your throat? About 80% of the time, according to the president, you die. Back to the world-renowned French doctor. In a poll, 6,000 doctors said it was their number one cure. They're using hydroxychloroquine in hospitals all over the country, including in New York. They had another doctor do a test where he cured 100% of the people in, 700 people. You have another doctor out talking about the downside risk. This is a doctor with 2,000 patients. And I told you this before, a rheumatoid arthritis and lupus. And he says, there, you 6 to 10 days of taking this twice a day, the negative results are nil. Why would you wait? Why wouldn't you try that? I bet you Chris Cuomo is going to give that to his wife and kid. He may not tell you about it. So this is the 23rd of this is Gateway Pundit. This is the report, which I got also, came out the 22nd, and Renault, Dr. Renault, has put out 98% of patients cured so far. We're talking. Hold on, let me just skip ahead here. Here's his actual paper. We're talking about 1,061 people, COVID-19 patients with hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin. This is Marseille, France. And look at the people that are working on this. Would you look at this, please? You think this is a bunch of stooges? This is, Marseille University, Marseille University Clinical Pharmacy, Timon Hospital Pharmacy Department, Center for Epidemiology and Public Health and Armed Forces in Marseille, France, and Marseille. Hello, this isn't a bunch of stooges putting out some homebrew. These are some of the most important infectious disease people in the world, along with some other very good people here in America. But yet the mainstream media wants you to think that this Dr. Renault, is some Trump stooge. Shame on the mainstream media for this deadly propaganda. You will not be remembered well in history. And I'll tell you something about your health care. Listen to me. You are in charge of your health care, not the doctor. You don't do whatever the doctor wants. You can demand this treatment early on. And if you have a spouse that can't talk and you're the husband or the wife, you then take priority. You tell the doctors. The downside risk is zero, is nil. According to that doctor in Los Angeles that treats 2,000 papers, the downside risk is nil. This is deadly propaganda where they don't care if you die, and they don't care if it's a Democrat or Republican, people. What can we do to make Trump die? Well, some people might die if we put out this propaganda. It's okay. Let him die. We just need to defeat him in the fall. We want him to look bad. So let's make out like the hydroxychloroquine HCQ doesn't work. And it's crazy. I can't believe that the editorial people at these networks and newspapers, I can't believe they still have a job after this. This is deadly, outrageous propaganda by the mainstream media. Not only do they ignore and ridicule and attack the hydroxychloroquine doctors and study that obviously works, they come up with this piece of junk from the Veterans Administration, where the Veterans Administration have walked it all the way back. They said, they gave this to them, when they were intubated and they were almost on death's door. And, some people died. A lot of people died. That's not what you're supposed to get this early, before any sign of intubation. Any sign of a ventilator. Now, why am I going on and on about this? Because this is what you need to know. Listen, I did nothing but do stories where people oversaw everything I did. I never just walked in and walked past the control room at Good Morning America and told my boss, Shelley Ross at the time, "Oh, Shelley, you're going to love what I'm doing. I know you don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going to walk out here to 5 million people and I'm going to spew a bunch of stuff that nobody knows anything about. I'm the reporter." That never happens, folks. The people responsible for the Jim Acostas of the world and these nutty people on CNN and all that, they're the people who are running the show. They allow that to happen. The people in command at the New York Times, at the Washington Post, at ABC, NBC, CBS, yes, those people, the editorial people, should be all fired. I think they should be sued if people die. I really do. This is beyond just a Republican, Democrat. This is like the African-American female. They would sacrifice her and know that now they're going to punish her. How dare her come out and tell people their lives could be saved? You think maybe some black people might see her and go, oh my gosh, that would help my family if I get sick. Yeah, it would. That's a scientific fact. And again, the FDA weeks ago approved its emergency use hydroxychloroquine, HCQ, and zinc, and azithromycin, a Z-Pack. Approved. It's not quackery. And it could be the one best thing that you could do right now. Of course, it works, and it's cheap, and it's plentiful. You can scale it up to millions of people right away. And wow, what's wrong with that? Well, it doesn't make Donald Trump look bad. That's what's wrong with that. And the best part, it can save your life. And it did so in 98.7% of the time, according to this test. And remember, this is 1,066 patients. Started out with 40, and then 80, and then 1,066, which were the top infectious disease doctors in the world. 8 died, 0.75%, 74 to 95 years old. 8. Conclusion. Early HCQ plus AZ, azithromycin, combination is a safe and effective treatment for COVID-19. That is a scientific fact, and this is going to be published, this report. The mainstream media doesn't care if you die, Democrat or Republican, black or white, Asian, Muslim, Catholic, Hindu. They don't care. They want you dead so they can make a point that Trump, Mr. Orange Man, is evil. That's outrageously reckless and evil reporting by people who are supposed to be looking after the common good. There is some good news. And, I came on here and said, after losing Jeffrey Epstein on the second time he tried to kill himself, I didn't have much faith in Attorney General Barr. Now, who knows what goes on behind the scenes? That's stuff that I don't even know about. But listen, we all know Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. I mean, didn't? Yeah, we know that, right? And according to Michael Baden, the top, medical autopsy doctor, is 99% sure somebody choked him out. So I didn't think much of William Barr and his handling of that, because he did have the top witness protection people at the U.S. Marshal Service at his total disposal to protect him, Epstein. But then this comes up. And John Durham expands his investigative team as he ramps up Spygate probe. We heard about all the things last week about Barr, and a couple of weeks ago, Barr saying that the Crossfire Hurricane there's no reason for them to do that. And that's the nicest way to say it was a hoax. I mean, the mainstream press, there's another big lie. They told you that Trump was a Russian asset, which is a lie, and Spygate is a total hoax, which is a lie. Just the opposite. Trump wasn't a Russian asset, and Spygate was 100% real. And it involved the FBI, the DOJ, the CIA. I think John Brennan, the former CIA director, is in trouble. And it could go all the way to the White House. It had to. President Obama knew about this. He got the presidential daily briefings. That's a fact. He knew about it. Whether they'll prosecute him or not, I don't know. But it does look like somebody is going to get prosecuted. I hope it's not just a bunch of low-level people. I hope they go after the whole crowd. The whole crowd needs to go down. Really, the whole crowd needs to go down. And that's one bright spot. Now, John Solomon, the reporter that came out and said on Hannity that I don't think anybody will have a full accounting, but nobody's going to go to jail. Well, now he's singing a different tune. So I don't know what's going on there. I don't know why we had, hot and we have cold, and now we're back to hot. So I don't know about that. But this is a story in Gateway Pundit. Durham, he's the top investigator hired by Attorney General Barr, expands his investigative team as he ramps up Spygate probe. And if you notice, all the Spygate people are awful quiet these days. Awful quiet. Thank you very much for supporting USAWatchdog.com with your contributions and your comments. I appreciate it. I think I have some of the smartest people on the web commenting on USAWatchdog.com. Of course, we also have the YouTube channel. I don't know if I ever told you this, but I did a test, where I bought a server, a place to play videos on Amazon. And I put up a previous, not this one, but another Martin Armstrong video. It got about 100,000 views in 6 days. And you know what? That didn't count. That the views on YouTube didn't count on USA Watchdog. So I got about as many people on usawatchdog.com as coming to the second biggest search engine in the world, YouTube. Why am I telling you this? Because if anything ever happens, if I'm ever, boom, deplatformed just like that, you can always see me on usawatchdog.com. usawatchdog.com. I'll always be there. And so I've already reached critical mass on usawatchdog.com. That's why if you go to the site and you don't have time to look at the video on YouTube, you can just read my write through, which is pretty extensive. And you can get the nuts and bolts of it, although you don't really get the same as the interview. I mean, I do a 34 interview with somebody like Martin Armstrong, and I write four or five paragraphs, and can't really get 30 or 40 minute interview condensed into 4 or 5 paragraphs. But you can get some good nuggets in there. So, but just always keep in mind, always come. You can always find me on usawatchdog.com, whether they notify you on YouTube or not. Just get in the habit of coming to usawatchdog.com. A lot of people on YouTube don't even know I have usawatchdog.com. But anyway, I really thank you very much for supporting me, whether it's usawatchdog.com or the YouTube channel. I appreciate it. Again, thank you for your donations. That does help us out, and your comments. And always remember, I'm not doing this to make you fearful. I don't want you to be fearful. I want you to see what's going on and know what's going on and go, okay, I get it. I see the fight with for example, Mitch McConnell saying, you guys can bankrupt because we don't want to pay for all those crazy pensions you promised to people. But I just want you to be informed. So the line that would get me fired on network television, here it is. Fear not, prepare yourself mentally, physically, above all, spiritually. Fear not, God the Father, His Son, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit are all firmly in control. Thank you again for supporting usawatchdog.com.